wonder if there's a difference between how the CCP is targeting the U.S. versus Europe, the EU?
That's a good question. Haven't seen so much difference in within a category like national security, right? They're relatively close in how they're doing it. We see some differences provincially, actually, inside China, how the different state security departments at the provincial levels or municipal levels are actually approaching it. That there's some difference. And that is simply because they're tied to the CCP so closely. So every provincial level Ministry of State Security office, first and foremost, reports to the provincial CCP office, the legal leading group, if you will, legal leading commission that exists at the provincial level. So they're under the thumb of the CCP completely. And that CCP element really guides, in some senses, how the collection is done, what specific targets to go after. So you see some differences in provinces, how they reach out and what targets that they go after. You see dramatic differences if they're collecting aerospace technology. I have 130 or so cases on aerospace technology, 160 on information technology. There you see dramatic differences in how they approach the target set. But by and large, national security in the UK, they approach it pretty similarly in EU, the way they do in the United States. So a lot of targeting of parliamentarians the past couple of years, right? Avoid the security apparatus and go after parliamentarians themselves.
So out of your acronym BEWARE, which of those incentive structures, out of the 855 cases you mentioned in your book, out of those, how many, or which one is the most prominent?
Once again, it depends on the type of espionage we're talking about. But if it's national security espionage, it's money followed by ethno-nationalism. So if it's economic espionage, it's opening up a business in China. Not money, but actually feeding that into a competing business in China. So, and what's the result of that? Well, if the motivation is a business in China, the recruitment motivation is a business in China, now you have all these specific indicators. Well, that's got to be done sort of openly. So you look for commercial email usage. You look for fundraising in China. You look for bank accounts in China. You look for trips there to go sell the product in China. So in each one of these categories, you wind up with different tells, as we would call them, right? Different indicators to look for if you were an insider threat specialist or a security specialist or a counterintelligence officer.
Wait, so like the great majority of Fortune 500 companies have set up business in China to some degree.
Right.
Where's the line between an American company just setting up some business operations or a joint venture in China, which until recently they were required to do? Where's the line between that and where it becomes espionage?
Well, the line is when you have specific trade secrets or intellectual property that the company makes some effort, and that's the law, makes some effort to protect as such, and they're taken and sold or incorporated into in this case, a Chinese business. And that happens very, very frequently.
Okay. So not for something like it wouldn't be like a trade secret for like IKEA, but it might be for some company that makes advanced polymers.
Right. Exactly. It would be some company that makes advanced polymers. It might be the specific technology, the manufacturing techniques. So, for example, in advanced semiconductors, it's the laser etching, the imaging capability, right? The manufacturing capability, not the chips themselves. We see plenty of cases where they're stealing chips, where they're stealing semiconductors. But the real key there is the technology behind it, how you make those laser systems that finely etch semiconductors. So you see a very focused effort in trying to steal that technology so that it can be replicated inside China.
Do you know about the American superconductor, that case? It was a wind turbine manufacturer that
Oh,
went
yes.
into China. Yeah, and they
Stole the software.
stole the software, and it was a combination of they had to do a JV with a Chinese company,
Right.
but then also someone on the Chinese side got to one of their employees in Europe and got them to essentially like sell out the company's secrets.
Right. And the company sort of lost hundreds of millions on that ultimately and went broke. And we see a similar situation with solar panels. And we see a similar situation occurred with steel manufacturing techniques. Right. And in fact, those cases led to the Defend Trade Secrets Act of 2016, I think it was, where the government reserved the right then to stop the imports of these items if they were based on that type of technology theft. And in each case, not only was those manufacturing techniques stolen from American companies, but then the Chinese government turned around and subsidized those industries to drop the price to drive American manufacturing out of business. And solar panels, steel production, and solar wind and wind production was all successful.
But this law was passed 9 years ago.
Right.
My gosh, that was like under Obama. That was a lot of administrations ago, and yet we're still getting Chinese solar panels, Chinese wind turbines, Chinese everything.
Well, not so much steel anymore, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, steel has been. There's still some steel, but anyway. What's the deal there? Like,
right. So
wasn't the law supposed to stop this?
Yeah. Well, no. The law actually allows American companies to sue, to recover for that, and they have, and in many cases, have sued and recovered, at least in U.S. court systems.
But who do they sue, though?
The Chinese company. In fact, a recent state-owned enterprises were sued in by American companies in California, and the court found, because the state-owned enterprise tried to make the argument that no, we're a part of the Chinese government, you can't sue a government. And ultimately, after 4 years, actually, it's been going on since 2013. I take that back. This case. Going on 2013, as it gone through the court system, they finally decided, no, you don't get that type of immunity because you don't do the things a government does. So,
well, but how do you enforce that? How do you collect?
Yeah, yet again, another problem. What you can do in that case is you can stop the products from coming into the US, but there's no way to collect on your loss. I mean, there are probably some ways to secure some funding for, based on that. But
if that importer, if that Chinese company is, if the fine is big enough, they can just declare bankruptcy in China and then start a new company, another state-owned company, to do exactly the same thing. So there's no way to actually ever get your money back if they don't want to give it to you.
And by the time you get your money back, by the time it works its way through the courts, and we actually saw this in the 80s with Japan and VCRs, by the time it works its way through the court, they've already established market dominance.
That was just one clip from our hour-long podcast. I invite you to watch the whole thing at our community platform, ChinaUncensored.tv. You get full interviews, audio downloads, plus exclusive live streams, and lots more stuff. So go to ChinaUncensored.tv and subscribe. I'll see you there.